My name's Emily. I'm 32 years old, and on April 3rd, 2025, I drowned when the floodwaters swallowed up our home. I've been a Texas girl my whole life, born and raised here. I'm a mom to a sweet little girl named Ava, who just turned 9, and I work part-time at the town library. My husband, Nathan, is a solid guy. He coaches high school football. Our life was pretty normal. We had those Friday night games, church on Sundays, little fights over what show to watch on TV, and that constant stress about making ends meet. We weren't wealthy, but we always had enough. Most importantly, we had love. Honestly, I never thought anything wild or terrible would happen to me. I was just a mom, a wife, living a quiet, small-town life most folks wouldn't even know about. The rain had been pouring for 3 straight days, not just a drizzle, but like the sky was dumping a wall of water that never quit. The news called it a once-in-a-generation flood. For us, it was the end of everything we knew. That little creek behind our neighborhood, the same one Ava and I used to skip stones on during summer, it had turned into a wild, angry river. That morning, the evacuation order came down. We scrambled to grab what mattered: photo albums, Ava's baby blanket, important papers. But the water was already creeping in, at first just around our ankles, then up past our knees. It was cold, muddy, and smelled like wet dirt mixed with pure fear. Nathan was trying to start the truck, but the flood was rising too fast. "Emily, we gotta go now," he yelled, holding Ava tight in his arms. Ava was crying, her tiny face buried deep in his shoulder. I was trying to grab our cat, Whiskers, stuffing him into his carrier, but the water surged again. Suddenly, a massive wave, dark, heavy, and full of power, smashed through our living room window, shattering the glass all around us. It knocked me off my feet instantly. I can still remember that sharp shock of cold water and the force slamming into me. It felt like getting hit by a speeding car. I went under the water. Everything around me turned into a swirling mess of muddy water, broken debris, and chaos. I couldn't tell which way was up. My lungs burned like fire. I fought to stay afloat, kicking and thrashing, but the current was way too strong. It felt like some giant invisible hand was holding me down beneath the water. All I could think about was Ava. I saw her face in my mind, those big blue eyes staring back at me. God, please, I prayed with everything I had left, just keep her safe. That was my last thought before everything went black and silent. The roar of the flood was gone. The burning in my lungs disappeared. All the panic and fear just stopped. I felt something gentle, like a feather being lifted by the softest breeze. My eyes opened, though I hadn't even realized they were shut. I wasn't in the house anymore. I could see everything. The roof of our home barely peeked out from a sea of swirling, muddy water. And there, on top of our half-submerged truck, was Nathan, clutching Ava tight in his arms. He was shouting my name, his voice hoarse and raw, torn apart by grief. The sound of Ava crying cut right through me. It shattered me inside. But the strange thing was, I didn't feel that heartbreak. Instead, there was this deep, unreal calm washing over me, a peace I couldn't explain. It didn't make sense. My family was still down there, trapped in that nightmare, and I was hovering above it all, completely still, completely calm. I tried to call out to them, to tell them I was okay, but I couldn't make a sound. I had no voice, no body. I was just me, pure awareness. A presence. I looked around and saw everything cloaked in this quiet, silvery gray mist. It wasn't frightening. It was peaceful. Still. Off in the distance, I began to notice faint glimmers, little lights rising up out of the water all over town. Souls. I just knew. That's what they were. Others like me who didn't make it. That thought came to me clear and sharp, like it had always been waiting, so this is it. This is death. But there was no fear in it. Just the soft, quiet knowing. Then, slowly, the mist started to shift, not like clouds drifting apart, but more like a curtain being pulled back. Far ahead, I saw a light. It wasn't the kind of light you'd get from the sun or a lamp. It was alive. It was made of more than just brightness. It was made of love. I know that sounds strange, but it's the only way I can explain it. That light radiated something pure, something whole, something so full of love it felt like it could reach inside me and fix everything. I didn't know if it was coming toward me or if I was being pulled toward it. I just knew I needed to be there. I wanted to be in that light more than I had ever wanted anything in my life. As I drew closer, the light started to take shape, the form of a man. He was tall, but not in a way that made me feel small. He wore a simple robe, a creamy, off-white color that shimmered with the same light that surrounded him. His hair was dark and hung just past his shoulders. His skin was a warm olive tone, like someone who'd lived their whole life under the sun. But his eyes are what I'll never forget. They weren't just a color. They were everything. The moment he looked at me, I felt my whole life unfold all at once. Not like watching a movie, but like feeling every part of it, every happy moment, every regret, every quiet act of love, every mistake I'd ever tried to hide. And he saw it all. But there was no judgment. Just this incredible, overwhelming understanding. A love so deep it felt like it was putting me back together, piece by piece. I felt tears, even though I didn't have eyes to cry from. Because for the first time in my life, or maybe beyond it, I felt completely seen. And completely loved. I knew exactly who he was. I didn't need to ask. The name rose up in me like a song, like a sacred truth, Jesus. And when he spoke, it wasn't with sound, it was a feeling, blooming inside me like warmth spreading from my chest. His voice was softer and kinder than anything I've ever known. Emily and he said. And somehow, just hearing him say my name felt like music. Like coming home. Welcome. Peace be with you. I heard his words clearly, but I still couldn't speak. I just drifted there, completely wrapped in his presence. And in that moment, everything I'd ever worried about, the mortgage, the broken car, even the silly argument Nathan and I had last week over what to make for dinner, all of it felt so small. So far away. None of it mattered now. The only thing that truly existed in that space was love, this deep, perfect, consuming love that felt like it had been waiting for me my whole life. He smiled at me, and when he did, the light surrounding him brightened, not in a harsh, blinding way, but in a way that filled me with comfort. It felt warm, like home. I'm dead, aren't I? The thought finally surfaced in my mind, fragile but clear. Your life on Earth is over, he said gently, but you are more alive now than you have ever been. He extended his hand toward me. I didn't have a physical hand anymore, but I reached out anyway, with something deeper, with my spirit. And the moment I did, the gray mist surrounding us vanished completely. Suddenly, we were somewhere else. It didn't look like the heaven I'd always pictured, no golden streets, no pearly gates. But it felt even more real. This place wasn't flashy or majestic. It was full of clarity, like every question I'd ever had could be answered just by standing there. Truth was solid here, as real as the ground beneath what felt like my feet. Where are we? I asked, trying to take it all in. This is a place of understanding, he replied. And I have something to show you, something you must take back. Take back? I hesitated. But I'm dead. I saw my family. They believe I'm gone. The thought of Nathan's pain, of Ava's sobs, flickered across my heart, but it felt distant, softened by the peace in his presence. Your journey isn't finished, he said, looking at me with eyes full of deep compassion. But first, you must see. You need to understand what's happening in the world you came from. His expression grew heavy with sorrow. So many of my children are lost, he said. They're distracted. They're afraid. They've forgotten how to listen. Then, the space in front of us changed like someone had turned the air into a giant, living window. I saw America. Not a map, but the real thing: cities, small towns, farmlands, all alive with movement, energy, people. But then I saw something else, something I'd never noticed before. A darkness. It wasn't the kind you could see with your eyes. It wasn't shadows or clouds. It was something deeper, a heavy, spiritual darkness that clung to everything. It wrapped itself around buildings, around people, thick like black smog. I saw it swirling around schools, around government offices, and even creeping around the edges of some churches. What? What is that? I whispered. Jesus looked at me, his face full of sorrow. It is fear, he said quietly. It is division. It's pride. And it's the noise of the world, drowning out my voice. He showed me a family, just an ordinary American family in their living room. But they weren't really together. The dad was slouched in a chair, scrolling through his phone, his face expressionless. The mom sat across the room, locked into a news channel that was yelling angry words. Their teenage son was shut in his bedroom, lost in a violent video game. The little girl sat alone on the floor, watching a cartoon on a tablet, something that twisted good things into something confusing, something dark. They were all in the same house, but emotionally, spiritually, they were miles apart. Each one locked inside their own glowing screen, isolated from each other. Around them, the dark smog was thick and pulsing, feeding on their disconnection, their silence, their distraction. "They're starving for connection," Jesus said softly. "They're starving for love," Jesus said, his voice heavy with sadness, "but they're feeding themselves poison. They argue over colors, red and blue, while their souls quietly fade into gray." He paused, and when he looked at me, his gaze was piercing, like it could see through to the very center of who I was. "This is why the storms are coming, Emily," he said. "Not just floods or hurricanes, storms of fire, storms that shake the ground, storms of hardship and loss. I don't send them to punish. I allow them to wake people up. I allow the shaking so that only what cannot be shaken will remain." Then the scene around us shifted again. I saw fire, not like a wildfire racing through trees, but something else. It swept through a city, not destroying buildings, but burning things. Luxury cars melted down into puddles of metal. Expensive clothes and piles of designer goods turned to ash. Bank vaults stood wide open, the stacks of money inside crumbling into useless dust. People weren't running from the flames. They were running from the emptiness. Everything they had built their lives around had vanished, and they were left hollow, stunned, with nothing left to cling to. "They built their houses on sand," Jesus said softly beside me. "They've worshipped idols, money, fame, influence, power. I have to let those idols fall," he said, "so they'll remember the only rock that lasts forever." Then another vision came into view. I saw a city suddenly go dark. Not just for a moment, not a temporary blackout. The lights were gone. For weeks. No electricity. Phones didn't work. The internet was gone. And the silence, it wasn't peaceful. At first, it was terrifying. In those early days, I saw fear erupt into chaos, people looting, fighting over scraps of food. The dark smog was thick and suffocating, heavier than ever. But then, something began to shift. A man knocked on his neighbor's door, someone he'd never even spoken to, and offered a can of beans and a flashlight. I saw strangers gathered around a small fire in the middle of the street, passing around stories and singing old songs together like they were family. People were staring up at the night sky, at stars they hadn't looked at in years. Wonder lit up their faces like children seeing the world for the first time. And then I saw them begin to pray. Not in fancy churches or big sanctuaries, but in their living rooms, on porches, in the middle of broken streets. The prayers were raw, honest, and full of need, not polished or perfect, just real. And as they prayed, I saw pinpoints of light start to break through the darkness. With every sincere cry, every whispered, "God, help us," the light got stronger, cutting through the smog. "Do you see?" Jesus asked, his voice now filled with hope. "The enemy's most powerful weapon is noise, distraction. He wants my children busy, angry, constantly entertained, anything to keep them from hearing me. But when the silence comes, when everything else is stripped away, they'll finally be able to hear again. In the hardship, they'll learn how to lean on each other. And on me." Then he turned and looked straight into me, into my soul. "This is what's coming to America," he said. "A great stripping away. A humbling. For many, it'll feel like the world is ending. But it's not the end. It's the beginning of a great awakening. I'm not judging your nation," he said gently. "I'm rescuing it." Then he showed me something else, something personal. A memory from my own childhood. I was about 7, kneeling beside my little bed, my hands folded in prayer. I was praying for my grandmother, who was in the hospital. "Jesus, please make Grandma better," I whispered in that moment, my little voice full of faith. As I watched, Jesus showed me what had been happening behind the scenes in the spiritual realm at that exact moment. I saw that small, innocent prayer rise up like a golden arrow, glowing with purity and love. It shot through the darkness and struck a shadowy figure looming over my grandmother's hospital bed. The creature shrieked and recoiled, retreating instantly, and then a beam of pure light came down and surrounded my grandmother like a shield. The next day, she made a miraculous recovery. I never knew why back then. I just thought she got better. No prayer is too small, Jesus said, his voice ringing with undeniable power. No word spoken in faith is ever wasted. You have no idea the battles you win when you drop to your knees, Jesus said. The enemy wants you to believe your prayers hit the ceiling and go no further. But I want you to know, they're shaking the very foundations of hell. Tears streamed down my face. It was too much, the beauty, the sorrow, the weight of it all, and the hope. It cracked something wide open inside me. All I wanted in that moment was to stay, to remain in that perfect place, where love was like air and truth surrounded you like sunlight. The idea of returning to a world full of noise and pain and broken things felt unbearable. Please, I begged him, the words catching somewhere deep in my spirit, please let me stay. I don't want to go back. It's too hard down there. I'm so tired. And suddenly, I was just a little girl again, remembering the smell of my mom's Sunday pancakes on a Saturday morning, a time when the world felt simple, safe, full of warmth. I just wanted to rest. He looked at me with eyes that melted every ounce of resistance I had left. He reached out and laid his hand gently on my shoulder. And the feeling, it was like being wrapped in 1,000 warm blankets on the coldest night. My sweet child, he said, his voice soft and tender, your love for your family is beautiful. It's a reflection of my love for you. But they need you, Emily. Ava needs her mama. Nathan needs his wife. They can't hear my voice right now, but they can hear yours. He paused. I'm sending you back. Not to a life of comfort, but to a life of purpose. You're going to be a light. You will tell them what you've seen. You'll tell them that I love them. That I'm not angry with them. That I am coming. And tell them this, they must prepare. But not with bunkers and cans of food. They must prepare their hearts. With prayer. With forgiveness. With love for their neighbor. That's the only kind of preparation that will matter. Leaving him, that was the hardest thing I've ever experienced. It felt like being torn away from the source of all joy, all peace. I sobbed a deep, aching cry from somewhere I didn't know existed. I don't know if I can do this, I whispered. You won't be alone, he said, and now his voice was steady and full of strength. I will be with you. Every step. Every word. Now go and do not be afraid. He touched my forehead and I gasped. The first thing I felt was fire, sharp, brutal fire burning in my chest, then an icy cold that reached all the way to my bones. My body jolted, racked with violent coughing as muddy, bitter water poured from my lungs. The world crashed back in like a wave of chaos. Voices were shouting. Lights were blinding. Someone screamed, "We've got a pulse." She's back. Clear. My eyes fluttered open. The ceiling was white, washed in fluorescent glare. There were masked faces hovering above me, mouths moving fast, but their words didn't make sense yet. Someone pulled a tube from my throat. The pain was raw, scraping, unbearable. Ma'am? Can you hear me? What's your name? A voice asked loudly. I tried to answer, but it came out as a croak. Emily. I was lying on a cot in a makeshift emergency shelter, set up in the high school gym. Everything around me was chaos. People crying, shivering under emergency blankets, medics running back and forth. A doctor leaned over me. His face looked like he hadn't slept in days. Emily, he said slowly, like he couldn't quite believe it himself. You were pulled from the flood by a rescue team. No heartbeat. No breath. We worked on you for over 20 minutes. We were about to call it. He shook his head, still in shock. I've been a doctor for 30 years. I've never seen anything like this. It's a miracle. And I started to cry, not from pain, but from loss. I had just left Jesus. I had just been in heaven. And now I was back in a world that felt loud and broken. It hurt to breathe, not from water, but from the ache of remembering what I had just left behind. Nathan and Ava were found a few hours later, rescued, and brought to a different shelter. The moment Nathan saw me, he collapsed to his knees right there by my cot, gripping my hand like he was never going to let go. Ava climbed up beside me, her little arms wrapped around my neck. "I thought you were gone, Mommy," she whispered into my ear. "I thought you were gone." And I held her. I held my husband. And in that moment, I knew why I had come back. So here it is. This is the message he gave me for you. For anyone willing to listen. He sees you. He sees your quiet moments, your late night worries, your pain, your fear about what's ahead. He's not some angry, distant God. He's a loving father trying to get our attention before it's too late. Yes, the world is going to be shaken. Things are going to happen that will scare a lot of people. But listen to me, do not be afraid. It's not punishment. It's a rescue. A way-up call. He's not tearing things down to hurt us. He's pulling away the false comforts, the distractions, the things we've leaned on for too long, so that we'll finally lean on him. If you've ever wondered whether your prayers matter, I'm telling you now, they do. I saw it with my own eyes. Your prayers aren't whispers into the void, they're weapons. They're powerful. So pray. Pray for your family. Pray for your neighbors. Pray for this country. Turn off the news. Put down your phone. And just talk to him. You don't need perfect words. You don't need to have it all figured out. All he's looking for is a willing heart. He's right there waiting, listening. Heaven is real. Jesus is alive. And he is coming. So prepare your heart.